And we've been locked down now, going on almost 2-3 months now. And who better to teach us about how to survive quarantine than Noah? I believe today's lesson was just so powerful. You said God was laying on your heart. Share with us.
Well, you were talking about where obedience was tied to their miracle was tied to their obedience. And so where they basically, when we're obedient to God, that will produce a miracle. And I was reminded of a narrative there where Jesus encounters these 10 lepers in Luke. And he tells them to go show themselves to the priest. And the Bible says that as they went, they were healed. And so that teaches me that because they trusted the word, they moved on the word and they experienced their healing. So with that word, that spoke to me that whenever we're obedient to God, we'll witness the miracles of God in our life when we obey his word.
I want to challenge that. If I'm not mistaken, and Leslie, if you mind, somebody right here, and this is Bible study. This is Bible study. This is what Bible study used to be. It wasn't a midweek service. It was literally investigating the word. As a little boy, we would go to Bible study, and a lot of people didn't show up, but my dad would sit there. They'd go verse by verse. It was studying the Bible. So I want you to find that scripture because I want to read it because I want to show you something about that story that I believe we can take and make applicable to our life. Look at what it says. It says right there in Luke 17:11. Y'all got it? Luke 17:11. As Jesus continued toward Jerusalem, he reached the border between Galilee and Samaria. As he entered a village there, he's at a border. Did you catch that? He's at the border of Galilee and where? Samaria. As he entered the village there, 10 lepers stood at a distance. Let's pause. Let's look at this didactically. Why are they standing at a distance? Grab that microphone. Why are they standing at a distance? Come on.
Unclean. They were unclean.
They
so
were unclean.
They could only get so close to him.
Because of a plague, they had to practice social distancing. Because of a plague that the rest of the community didn't understand. Because we can't heal you, we need you to stay at a distance. All right, so they made all of the lepers stay in these little ghettos. We ain't gonna deal with that socially. They stayed in these little ghettos, right? They had to stay at a distance. And because they had to stay at a distance, they had to look at the next verse, crying out, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. Verse 13, let's put that on the screen. Verse 13, they cry out, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. What's wrong with that? Somebody, let's talk. What's wrong with what they cried out first? That's context clues. What's wrong with what they cried out first? Jesus, son, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. You want me to tell you the answer? They should have shouted unclean. Desperation made them yell something different. I want you to catch this. Every other person they encountered, they shouted what? Unclean. But when they encountered Jesus, they said mercy. I'm preaching to the wrong folk. You want to know what I'm discovering? What people say to me and don't say to me speaks. So people who will bring me their jokes but won't bring me their problems says they don't see me as a problem solver. So I'm going to tell you I'm unclean because there ain't nothing you can do with it. I'm going to say to him mercy because he got the answer. I'm preaching to somebody already. So hear me when I say this. I want my life to be a reflection. I want what people bring me to be a reflection of what I possess. So that just delivered me. So the reason people bring me problems is because they see me as a problem solver. Am I preaching to anybody? So he says, look at me. He looked at them and said, go show yourself to the priest. Why is that important? Because that was law. Say that. Come on, jump in that mic. Jump in there, Pastor.
I think that's good because the priest had to be the one to declare that they were clean again. And it's this idea that many times in life, we see where when people have problems, they run away from the church.
Ugh.
Where in fact, we really should take our problems to the church.
I'm going to argue with you, Pastor. Let's argue. He said, so in order for me to be declared clean, let me free you. They could have been healed. But if the priest didn't say it, it wasn't valid. He said, but watch this. So people get in life and run from the church. You saying they ought to run to the church. Tell me why. Why should they run to the church?
It's this idea that of validation almost. And I say that because in our culture and our climate, a lot of times we think we don't need validation. But even when we think about Jesus and his ministry, he didn't even do any public miracles until he was affirmed, validated by his Father. So yes, you're healed, but this priest, this covering, has to be the one to put that stamp of approval on it.
Let's talk about this. Everything we say tonight, I'm a challenge. This is Bible. We're letting them peek in on stuff that happens in the office all the time. So hear me when I say this. You said he had to say it to validate it. I'm going to take that even higher. The priest had to say it to let the spirit realm know you have no more authority. Not your earthly daddy, because if a doctor said it, that's cool. I want the priest to put a stamp on it to say, hey, all spirits that come with this, you have no authority. Did you catch that? Did you catch that? He looked at them and said, go show yourselves to the priest. As they went, they were cleansed of their leprosy. Now, here's why I want to challenge what you just said. As they went, that's called obedience. They were cleansed. One of them, when he saw that he was healed, came back to Jesus shouting, praise God. Look at the next verse. He fell to the ground at Jesus' feet, thanking him for what he had done. This man was a Samaritan. Pause, don't move that screen. Let's deal with this. 10 got issues. 10 are obedient. 10 get healed. 1 come back. I'm gonna say it again. 10 got issues. 10 are obedient. 10 get healed. 1 come back. I'm the 1. See, Aisha, the goal is to be the 1 in a culture that's telling you to be in the 10. I want to be in the number, but don't forget, I'm the 1. Don't forget I'm the 1. Am I preaching to anybody? Can we do the math again? 10 got issues. 10 get obedient. 10 get healed. 1 come back. Now we're going to look. So this is Bible study. This is Bible study. This is Bible study. Bible study. Every line of every word means something to me. Look at this. He fell to the ground at Jesus' feet. All right, why is that important? Talk to me. Why is that important? Why is that important?
Because previously he had to be at a distance.
Say it again.
Previously he had to be at a distance. So when we first encountered him.
Yes, y'all got to think with me tonight. So the first miracle was he broke distance. When he meets Jesus, he's at a distance. After obedience, he gets an offering, an invitation. No, I'm not even going to say that. After obedience, he gets the boldness to come close. But I want to tie this back to what you said. You said that the obedience was they got healed. But I want to show you how obedience goes further. Because it says, go back to the first verse. I want them to see this now. As Jesus continued toward Jerusalem, he reached the border of Galilee and Samaria. As he entered the village there, 10 lepers stood at a distance. Look at this, crying out, Jesus, have mercy on us. Verse 14, look at what he says. Go show yourselves to the priest. As they went, they were cleansed of leprosy. 15, look at what he says. One of them saw he was healed, came back. 16, he falls to his feet and began to thank him. This man was Samaria. 17, Jesus asks a prolific, powerful question. Didn't I heal 10? Where are the other 9? Verse 18. Has no one returned to give glory to God? There it is again. Except the foreigner? So does that lead us to ask the question that some of the people who were sick were saved? Jump in there, Candace. Jump in there.
So when I read the difference between, they said when they ran off, they were cleansed. But when Jesus said they were healed, it's a difference between cleansing and being healed. Because to me, cleansing was the outside, but healing is the inside.
Absolutely. And that's the point of the night. Because verse 19 says, Jesus said to the man, stand up and go. Your faith has healed you. So watch this. Obedience got them cleansed. Gratefulness got him healed. That was the point. So what I'm trying to get you to realize is you don't stop on obedience. It don't stop on obedience. Obedience should produce more. Oh, gratefulness. That's so critical, man. That's so critical. So that's what we're talking about. Noah was obedient. Noah was obedient, so God gave him a command. I want you to catch this now. Being different makes the difference. If we're going to make an impact in this world that God is calling us to, we cannot be afraid to be different. Everybody's doing makeup. You can't be afraid that in the midst of your makeup tutorial to talk about the love of God. Being different, being different. My goal is to be in this world, but not of this world. Look at John 15, 18 and 19. I want you guys to jump in there. If the world hates you, remember that it hated me. I'm gonna read that again. If the world hates you, remember that it hated me first. The world would love you as one of its own if you belong to it. But you are no longer part of the world. I chose you to come out the world, so it hates you. Romans 12 and 2. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind so that you may prove what the will of God is. Let's stop right there. Let's leave that on the screen. Let's explicate this nuance. Let's exegete this, draw from this text as a team today. He says, because we stop too quick in church. Be ye transformed. Don't be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, period. No, that's a comma. That's a comma. So we want to have a new mind. That's it. He said, no, 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 so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect. Let's talk about the struggle with being in this world and not of this world. Somebody jump in there. Come on.
Well, I think it's so good, this idea of conformity or conform versus transform.
Yeah. Put that on the screen. Say that again.
When I'm conform versus being transformed, conformity is there's this outward standard that I'm trying to live up to. Transform, he says, by the renewing of your mind. That's something that happened on the inside of you. You can't prove God's will until you realize that you can't. Proving God's will doesn't mean doing what makes people happy, but doing what makes God happy. And so many of us are conforming, which means if I see something on social media, I'm going to do it. If I see somebody down the street do it, I'm going to do it. When God says, I don't want confirmation, I want transformation.
Yes.
I want you to take a seed that I planted in your heart, water with the word, with prayer, with devotion, and then you live up to my standard, not the world standard.
I want to argue this. Go to John 15, 18, and 19. If the world hates you, remember it hated me first. Romans 12, 2. And don't be conformed. What if I argue that the attack of the world may be the watering to the seed? Yeah, what if I want to argue with you if what you're doing isn't receiving any type of criticism? It may not be authentic. Because everything that's comfortable might be conforming. That's crazy, ain't it, James? That's crazy. And so what do we do? The world has position. So world, be transformed by, and don't be conformed to this world. We know world in the New Testament Greek translation means cosmos. Cosmos, that's the New Testament Greek translation. Cosmos, translation means most often referred to as the planet Earth. It's human inhabitants who live there with their backs turned towards God. So cosmos, when he said the world, he's not talking about just Earth. He's talking about this embodiment of a belief that God isn't necessary. Those that have turned their back to God. This is so critical. So he says, so don't be conformed to this world, this body of the people. Satan is the prince of this cosmos. So in other words, don't walk in line with them. Don't be afraid to be different from them. John 12:31. The time for judging this world has come when Satan, the ruler of this world, would be cast out. So one thing we have to understand is we are an ambassador of heaven. We are an ambassador in heaven. We are an ambassador of heaven. You want to know something? I'm not going to go there. I get in trouble. I almost went there, but I'm not going to go there because I'm learning every industry that bears the name that associates with God is not necessarily a godly industry. Just because Jesus in a song don't make it a church song. Did you get a Christian song? Did you catch what I just said? So I'm discovering. All right, Boosie. The funniest thing he did for me in the past year was when he put on the KSI shirt. Now I'm a member of Cap Alpha Psi. So when I saw him with the shirt on, the first thing I thought was, I didn't know Boosie was a noob. Like I got amped, like, oh, Boosie a noob. Then they was like, no, Boosie ain't no Cap. He's like, he found the shirt, he put it on, he thought he could just wear the shirt. So as powerful as Boosie is, I want you to catch this. Most people would have been like, look, Boosie got on a Cowboy shirt. Man, let that man wear the Cowboy shirt. But because we've been through something. And I paid for this in a sense of with my life. I pledged, I went through something for this. And I need you to take that off. You can't bear my name if you ain't gonna go through my pain. And there's two types of people who wear shirts like that. Those who pledged and those who paid. Oh, I can't even go there. And the reason there's a juxtaposition between the two is because if you don't want to go through my pain, I don't feel like you should be able to wear my name. And what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people trying to wear his name but do their own thing.
That's good, Pastor. One thing I was thinking about when you said that, God told me that boldness without brokenness was arrogance.
Ooh.
So God told me until I allow him to break me in some areas, that pain, because we could be walking around without a boldness, yet we're arrogant. But we got that holy boldness, meaning I've allowed God to break me in some areas. Even thinking about, and I know I'm going back to even thinking about Noah. You said Noah was obedient. He was picked, but we know he wasn't perfect. So that let me know that God can pick me even though I'm not perfect, as long as I'm obedient to his word.
You said boldness. Give me that quote again. Boldness.
Boldness without brokenness is arrogance.
Let's stop there. Boldness without brokenness is arrogance. That's critical. That's cold, ain't it? She might get a quote of the night 2 weeks in a row. Boldness without brokenness is arrogance. And many of us don't want to be broken but we want to be bold.
That's good. That's good.
It's crazy, ain't it? Come
Even
on.
when you was talking about the reflection, I thought about as Noah was obedient to the father, his sons was obedient to him. Because even with this whole stay-at-home order, we know it's people in our household that refuse to stay at home, being disobedient. His kids could have denied and been disobedient to
that's
get
good.
on the boat. But his children been a reflection of him as he was obedient to the father. They was obedient to him. And from their obedience, they produced after the flood. So their blessing came after they were obedient to their father.
That's crazy. I want to tag team that. I want to jump on that because I think this is critical. This is so critical. This is so critical. Too many of us are trying to demand what we say, not what we live. That's crazy, Andy Kurt. That's my frustration. That'll be my frustration with my spiritual sons because I feel like I don't say a lot. I try to live a lot. So when I do speak, I try to speak on where I've grown from, and here's what I'm trying to be better on. So I think this is critical. I want to deal with this too. This is good today. This is good. Let's talk about how Noah was righteous before the flood and had issues after the flood. We never talk about that. He was an alcoholic after the flood. So here's my thing, because as church people, we tend to judge folk. What drove this man to alcohol? Was it already in him? Was he an alcoholic? No, because he was righteous. Blameless. I believe seeing, this is my personal belief, seeing all that death. I believe being on the edge of the boat and hearing screams and people knocking on the wall and trying to get in and Noah, open the boat. Noah, open. I think his obedience drove him crazy.
Yes, but also we could say, of course, God being Alpha and Omega, knowing he was going to be an alcoholic after the flood, called that alcoholic still to be obedient to him, to still get something through to the world.
That sounds so good. That sounds so good. But if Noah was alive right now, the tweet would be Noah alcoholic. It wouldn't be Noah the builder of the ark. When we live in a culture that has minimalized Michael Jordan to a meme. Jump in there.
I think too, and when you said that, it made me think about it. We know so much about how to cope with failure, and a lot of times we preach and teach from that posture, but we don't talk enough about how to cope with success.
Put that on the screen. How do we cope with success?
Yes,
Keep
sir.
going. Keep going.
Because you can think about was it Elijah?
Yeah.
He just had this great battle, defeated 500 prophets of Baal,
Depressed.
but then falls immediately into depression.
Go
Gets
sit up
under
on
a
a tree.
This man of God
Said,
under
"Kill
this
me.
tree said, you know what?
Kill
I'm
me."
no better than my fathers. Now, what's critical about that is he's more successful than his fathers. But something about success caused this moment of reflection for him to look back and say, I got all of this. I've done all of this, but I'm still no better than. We don't teach people how to cope with success.
How to cope with success. Success will drive you crazy. Success will kill you if you let it. Hear me, I've learned more from my pain than I did from my wins. How to cope with success. I want you to understand it. Number one, we got to define success. That's the biggest thing we have to do. We have to define, is success where I live, what I drive? Is it a pretty wife for the pictures?
But
Come
maybe
on.
that's why we don't cope well with success, because once we get what we thought was success, we realize
ain't
this
real.
wasn't really it from the
It
beginning.
ain't real. Hear me. Many of y'all remember this. My goal was to be the youngest pastor on the Word Network. 29, James. I'm 29. I said before 30, I'm gonna be the youngest pastor on the Word Network with a prime time slot. It was Dr. Vernon, Jamal Bryant, me. Oh my, you couldn't tell me nothing. I'm on that joint happy, like I did it. And after the first show went off, I was like, well, what's next? Empty. Because when you don't define success, the finish line keeps moving. Success without a definition is a moving finish line. So if you don't determine what success is, it keeps moving. Therefore, you're never grateful. Jesus. It becomes like State Farm. Oh, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get it. You gotta be quicker than that. What we gotta realize in this world, we're in this world, but not of this world. So the thing we have to understand is I am a visitor. This isn't my home. I shouldn't make myself comfortable here. I'm only passing through. James 1:12 says, God blesses those who patiently endure testing and temptation. Afterward, they will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. That is so critical. Afterwards, God blesses those who patiently endure testing. Put that on the screen, testing. Testing. I want to dive into this. Y'all ready for this? The revelation of testing. The teacher only tests you on stuff they taught you. The teacher only tests you on stuff they taught you. You are a bad teacher if you give kindergartners a calculus test. The only right that the teacher has to test you is the proof that they taught you, which means anything you're being tested in, you took the class for. The question ain't, did they teach it? The question is, were you listening? Jesus. Have you ever took an open book test? And failed because you didn't do the reading? So even though the book was open, you ain't know where to go, which is why you got a Bible and can't find hope, because you've never opened it. So even though life is an open book test, you still got to know where to go to find it. And whenever God gives you a test, the test is intended for you to pass, not pass out.
And one thing God told me was a test is repeated and to learn.
Say it again.
So a test is repeated and to learn. So until you learn that test, you're going to continue to keep repeating that same thing.
So you're saying God will flunk you?
I'm not going to say going to flunk you because he give you another chance to take it.
That's a flunk. So either he going to grade it on a curve, or he going to let you retake the test, or you got to take 9th grade over. I'm going to argue it's a whole lot of people watching this stream who's still in 10th grade. I'm going to argue a lot of you keep saying, I thought this year was going to be big. And God like, no, this year going to be big. You just ain't going to experience 2020 to 2024 because you're still in the class of 2019. So what I have for you in 2020 is still available, even though the year changed, you didn't. I don't think you heard what I just said. So just because everybody else moved on, you probably didn't because you didn't pay attention and pass the test.
It reminds me of something you told us years ago.
Come
We
on.
were reading Emotionally Healthy Spirituality by Pete Scazzaro. And one of the quotes in the book was, he said he looked up 20 years into his life with God and realized instead of being a 20-year-old Christian, he had become a 1-year-old Christian 20 times. Because every time it was time for God to take him to that next level, like what you're saying, Tiffany, he couldn't graduate to the next level. God had to keep. So here I'm supposed to be 20 years into my knowledge and growing with God in my prayer life and my understanding. I wonder how many times I've had to repeat the same place in God over and over again because I couldn't pass the test.
Hey, one of my favorite movies is 50 First Dates. Every day he had to wake up and win again because she couldn't remember.
I think for me, what my pastor said during a sermon one time, he said the difference between and the distance between where you are now and where you want to be is obedience. So when it comes to being obedient, that first choice, my pastor also said that the first choice that God gave us was freedom. And that was the choice to choose to be obedient or to not be obedient. So when I'm not obedient and that test keeps repeating itself, it's instead of saying, God, why do I keep have to do this? God, what am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to learn in this season? What am I supposed to learn with this test? Why am I keep failing instead of saying, stop taking me through it over and over?
Yeah.
No, what am I supposed to learn?
And let's deal with this. You just sparked something in me. What about those of us who passed the test but still don't learn nothing? Because some of us know how to do just enough to get a C, but can't remember what we learned in the last semester. Jesus. So a lot of times there's this pressure that comes with life of always having to pass tests. When the question, I'm gonna almost argue that let's redefine success. Redefine success. The goal ain't an A. The goal is comprehension. I can cheat my way to an A.
I was thinking when you said that, Pastor Mike, my sister's a teacher and she teach kindergarten. And I didn't know that legally you cannot hold a child back in kindergarten more than, if they fail the first year, you can only make them repeat one other year. After that, whether they know it or not, whether they comprehend or not, you have to send them to the first grade. And she was distraught because she had a child that she said they just could not get it. But because of the law, regardless if they failed it or not, she had to pass them to the next level. So some of us are going to the next level, not because we got it, but because of the grace that God has given us. Like we don't have it, but God's gracing us to move to the next level.
My son has an IEP. That's called an individualized educational plan. Meaning, this is so cold blooded, right? They take a test. If the test stresses him out because of his Asperger's, they allow him to go to another class and take it. Back in the day, I think we called it special education, individualized education plan. And I'd be weak because I'd be sitting there like, Mike, sometimes I bet you just go. He said, yeah, I ain't study. So I just go in there and take my test. They let me open it up. And I'm like, Mike, come on, brother. You get what I'm saying? But I had something for him. I called the teacher and said, hey, don't let him come this week. So when he brought that D home, we had to sit in it. Yeah, I didn't want him to keep bringing D's. I didn't want him to keep bringing fake A's, assisted B's. I said, I want you to look at me. I said, I'm so proud of that D. I said, did you try your best? He said, Dad, I just couldn't get it. I said, but did you try your best? He said, yeah. I said, we're gonna put that on the refrigerator. I said, I don't care about the D. You gave me your effort. We can get you tutoring. I can't teach effort. I can't teach effort. You get what I'm saying? So, because a lot of times we allow the world to define success. That A says I'm better. That honor roll says I'm better. But some of us need an individualized educational plan. Sometimes God uses pain as your individualized educational plan. And what I'm trying to get you to realize is, like Noah, he teaches us a very powerful principle that we should live for our second life, not our first life. We got another life after this. We have another life after this. And how we choose to live determines where we live again. Is that not critical? Is that not critical? I'm trying my best. We put so much pressure on people to be perfect. I wish I was everything my members taught. I wish I was everything my members thought. I know they probably think, Pastor at home, intercede, fast and praying. Now, I stress just like them sometimes. I worry just like them sometimes. I want us to realize that our walk with God is grounded in obedience. And how we choose to be obedient makes the difference. That was good, wasn't it?